and welcome to the Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have one of my friends. She is a producer, but I'm going to allow her to introduce herself to you all. So, hello over there.
Hi, hey Jade. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be a part of your very famous podcast. My name is Andrica. My name is Andrica Rig. I'm actually a 24-year-old Jamaican, soon to be 25. Initially from Montego Bay, St. James, but I'm now living in Kingston. Telling about myself is a bit hard because there's so much to tell, but I'm pretty much a young lady that believes so much in my dreams, and I try my best to never stay on the same level. So I'm always evolving. I am a producer of three radio shows and a podcast, as well as I am an investor in many financial markets. So,
Look
kind
at
of well
her.
kind of well rounded, and I try my best to just always be elevating myself and moving, to the next level. But yeah, I guess I'm speaking in the space of a producer today.
Yes, ma'am. Why? Yeah, you're going on with a whole heap of things. So, let's jump right into it. You already told us about yourself. Now, I want you to break down what a producer does and how important that work gets done before a show.
All right, so that's actually a really good question. Thank you for that. So the thing about a producer is a show cannot exist without one. If a show isn't being produced, then you pretty much have no show. So
Um,
typically, especially, sorry, you were saying something.
no, man, I just agreeing with you.
Right. So typically, especially in radio production specifically, um, what a producer does is it prepares content for the show. So whether your show is every day or every week, every single episode of your show, the producer has to find content. It's important
Mm-hmm.
also that the producer is checking in with the talent to make sure that everything is okay and that the talent knows what to expect for said show. A lot of the times, a producer has to go above and beyond as well because it's important that your talent is present. So if your talent has an emergency, the producer kind of has to hop out of being just a producer and assist them as
Mm-hmm.
best as possible.
Mm-hmm.
What this means for you as well is that you have to be well informed, well known, well read. And you kind of have to be a critical thinker, quick on your feet, because production, especially live production, things happen in the
Mm-hmm.
blink of an eye and it will keep moving. When it's recorded, it's a little different. You can take out, but when it's live, it's almost like, snap, snap, snap. You gotta go, you gotta fix as you go along kind of vibe. So it's about just
Mm-hmm.
being a producer means dedicating to the job and you're taking it on. And sometimes production doesn't stop at the space, but it's like something that you carry out through your life. So you might have to wake up at 5 a.m. to make sure that your talent is okay, kind of vibe. I hope that helps.
Mm. It does. That brings a question. How is it that you manage to come up with shows for you say it's three radio shows that you do. How do you manage to come up for content for every one of those shows all the time? And it can't be something that is always repetitive, you know? So how do you manage that?
All right, so lucky for me, I'm blessed to produce three separate shows. One of them is an entertainment show that is 5 days a week. And then I also do an education show, which is weekly, and I have a youth show that is on the weekend. The thing is, there are three different shows, so it kind of gives me, I get to use content from everywhere. So for my entertainment show, we go more for edutainment. So I will observe what's happening in the news daily. So say for example, a random Monday, I'll look at the COVID cases on that day. I'll look at the stuff that are trending on social media as well as what's trending in the news, what's breaking the news for that day. And then you pull content from that. But where the critical thinking comes in, it's where you look at things from outside the box. So say for example, I'm trying to think of something that happened recently, but even for
Mhm.
election per se. So everybody was talking about the Jamaican elections that just went, but you can look at it from a different perspective. Like, how does election affect youth, or how does election affect just the economy kind of vibe? So it's kind of like looking at it from a different point of view other than people going out and vote. So content comes in those spaces and in those ways because you look at what's happening around you and you make it work for you. For the education show, it's a little easier because you just use subjects and you use subject matters, and then what you can do is relate it to what's happening around you. So when the elections were happening, I would have done social studies because you know that that involves government of a country. And then, of course, with the youth show, like I said, you look at the impact on youth. Are the youth decisions being considered? And do we have a voice? Yeah, that kind of vibe.
That's interesting. But to tell you the truth, I believe still that it's a lot of work to still come up with stuff, because even though you're looking at things that are trending or so, the way how it is done, the way how it is put out, I mean, you are not the one that is putting it out on air, but you are getting the backbone, or you're getting the ideas to give to them so that they can put it out on air. I still believe that it's a lot of work. I still believe
It can be
that
considered
it
a
is
lot
a
of
lot
work,
of work.
But here what? It's about perspective because each month comes with its own things. And if you're focused, I think for me that's why I like this whole idea of doing something that you love or doing something that you have
Okay.
a very high interest in. Because if you're already interested in that, you already have some ideas. So take for example, we're now in the month of October. There's breast cancer awareness.
Mm-hmm.
There is cybersecurity awareness. There are so many things happening. I think there are some disabilities as well that are observed in this month. So when you look at that from a grand space, you can say, maybe I can do one or two shows based off of the things that are happening in this month. Locally in Jamaica, you know that Heroes Weekend is coming up. So you try to say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Heroes Weekend is coming up. What can I do in a different way that can reflect that and put some pressure on that holiday? So the month kind of works for you if you focus on it. And again, that's how the news works for you as well. So there's something always happening. A lot of the times it can be good, it can be bad. It's just for you making the content work for you. But if you love it, you'll find
Interesting.
that you fall in line with it, so to speak. And it just becomes a part of you. And you can be driving, and this is just me giving an example. I was driving one day, and I tend not to use my phone in traffic. I tend to be a little bit more observant because you know how things are. And I
Mm.
I saw a homeless guy just sitting there, and I thought to myself, can have we done
Mm-hmm.
any features of just, clearly after they're cleaned up and whatever it is, just talking to them and finding out their stories? That's a production that somebody can
Right.
do. Another one I found was there's in Jamaica we have car wipers, window
Okay.
wipers, sorry, at the certain we call those stoplights, you have window sheet wipers. Some of them do it because it's their way of income, but a lot of them have a story.
Right.
They have a story as to why they're there. I ended up coming across a guy that he does that to send his child to school. So he literally comes out every
Mm-hmm.
day, wipes windows, makes that money so his child can go to school. And he made up his mind that he rather to do
Mm.
that than to be begging, which a lot of us
Right.
would do. So when you look at stories like that, you can think of productions that would help you, and those are inspirational stories, and that's something that could work in any show if you
Right.
produce it the right way. So you can use inspiration from around you all the time.
Mm. Do you mind telling us the three shows that you do?
No, I don't mind. I can tell you. So I work predominantly with a radio station called Nationwide 90 FM in Jamaica. I produce
Mm.
all three shows are on that. So I produce a show, sorry, called Miss Kitty Live. It's hosted clearly by a personality by the name of Miss Kitty. That's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. On a Friday evening, I produce a show called The A Team. It's hosted by Dennis Brooks. That's the educational show where we bring teachers and students together. We focus predominantly on PEP, CXC, and CAPE subjects. And then on a Saturday, I have a youth program called Talk of Youth. That is just everything that's based with youth, what affects youth, whether it be good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah, those are my three shows.
Okay, very nice. So people can, tend to look out for them also and listen in.
Right.
on the programs that you do. And
Thank
I
you
mean,
for that
guys, I've
plug.
heard them before.
Yes.
Yeah, I've listened to them and they are very interested, especially with sitting and let me not stray. So I want to know, have there ever been situations where a quick change has to be made on the spot during a show and you're trying to figure it out or you can't do anything? Has there ever been that situation?
One too many times. So at least once a week, there's a situation like that. So another thing, or it
Mm,
piggybacks a little bit more on live radio. So I also do a podcast, but that's a little bit more recorded. So my life is easy because I can do and go. When you're on live
right.
radio, if a guest decides that they are not answering their phone or they are not showing up, you are now left with 2 or 3 segments blank. Nothing. Zero. Nit. And you're there sitting like, so then this real? That person are really not going to answer like right now. And it's almost, you
Mhm.
get that mini panic. Some might call it a little anxiety feeling in your chest because you're like, what am I going to know? So a lot of the times I either have to think quickly to say, what can I fill the segment with? Or if I had another, because a lot of the shows are segmented to have more than one features, I'll try to pull up a feature,
Right,
which buys me time to fill the future slot, or I fill
right.
in, which is why it's good to be well read and well, knowledgeable about current affairs. Yes, current affairs is the term for it. When you know what's going on around you, it really
Mm,
helps you. Because, say, for
right.
example, and I'm going to say this really loosely, and I hope the United States of America is not listening, but say, for example, we had a blank slot on my show yesterday, Saturday, for the Talk of Huge show. But we also know
Right,
that the President of the United States tested positive for COVID-19. Immediately, I could have used that as a plug. So maybe it wasn't
right.
planned, but I know it off the top of my head. So I can say, okay, talk about that real quick. Talk about maybe read some comments online. Talk about what was happening. Talk about the fact that he had to be, flown to the hospital, stuff like
Right,
that.
right,
So what
right.
that does for you, even though it's not ideal, you now get a slot filled and you find out if your
Hmm.
guest is gonna show up at all. A lot of the times they actually don't, by the way. You will have guests that never answer
What you
their phone.
said?
Yeah, man. You'll have guests that will make up their mind, and I'll tell you, Jamaican artists are like that as well. I wish not to.
Don't remember. Listen. Okay.
Yes,
This one has got so interesting.
yes.
But continue.
Yes,
Continue.
Jamaican artists are like that as well. Jamaican celebrities on a whole. You see, if they feel like something better came up and your little show or this radio show is not where they want to be right now because them get a money opportunity, I kid you not, they will not show up and they will not tell you. Or they will
But that,
answer you 2 hours later to tell you that something came up.
yeah, but let me tell you, I just find that so unprofessional. And because I mean, just like how they want to plan their lives a particular way, people plan their shows a particular way. So you can't just leave people out there, but I guess they don't care. Celebrities, sometimes, majority of the celebrities, I'm going to say, sometimes they just don't care. So they're leaving around. So you have to be thinking on your head
Yes,
and always have to
yes,
prepare. So let me say this, but sometimes we're gonna have to sometimes prepare for the worst
yes,
when dealing with them,
yes.
or they're supposed to come on the show. But how long did it take for you to grasp how to deal with this in terms of let down with shows, thinking quickly to put different shows or different ideas in slots when people flake, whatever. How long did it take for you to deal with this?
Boy, JD, I put me up on the spot though, but I don't know if I can put a time to it per se, but it would have probably been after a couple months because production is also on the job training. So after your first, oh my God, after your first three, what you call it now, mess ups, you realize, okay, this
Mhm.
can't keep happening. So you learn, you develop an ear for it, an eye for it, and a thought process for it. So
Okay.
one of the things I have for my main show, and I'll call Miss Kitty Lab my main show because I do that more than the other shows. One of the things we
Right.
have is what we call like a topic Bible, right?
Okay.
So what that is over a period of time, I'll collect ideas and topics based off of just random experiences. So the truth is, I could really be on a date, and I see something interesting, and I find that that's a topic.
Miss, you are jumping my gun and talking about my last
Oh, all
question.
right, never mind. All right, but what I'm saying is, it over maybe over a few months, maybe I can say 6 months, 3 to 6 months period, depending. Um, yeah, and the more you're doing it, so if your show is a daily show, you have to learn it faster, as opposed to if it's once a week or once a month. So the more you have to do it, is the quicker you'll catch it. And some people never do. Some people always spaz out.
Mm.
Um, because production doesn't work the same for everybody. It's
No, I was just gonna say that, I was just gonna
yes.
say that, but
It's
yeah.
sad to say I've seen some people and I'll feel weird because I'm like, okay, I'm kind of still new. I've only been doing this for about 4 years. So I'm not like a master producer, but there's some things that I'll get right, and there will be people that has been in the game for 10 years and they don't know how to handle simple situations, and I'm like, oh no.
I mean, I think sometimes people get people get anxious. I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Sometimes when these things happen, people get anxious because, all right, we talk about production, and production is being done different ways because you're a producer for a radio show. I'm a producer for a a podcast. I mean, I have done radio also before, but and I have seen where what you're talking about when people don't show up or whatever,
Mhm.
how you deal with that. Um, as for the side of being a producer for a podcast, it's different because what I try to do is to I try to record beforehand.
Mhm.
So it's not something like what you're going to do that is more intense, where you're doing it on the spot for some of the shows. So if somebody flake out right there, say I have to go find somebody, because I'm telling you, with my anxiety, I don't know if that would work out for me well. I don't know. I don't think that has worked out for me so
I
well. So even though some persons have been in it for like 10 years and so while you have been doing it less, I think, and I'm gonna say, I think you are very professional with how you do it or how you manage it. I have seen you manage it before. Um, and I think you are so good. It's natural for you. While some people, it's not that natural for them. And it brings back to the point that you made, doing something that you love rather than just doing something. Because if it's something that you love, you gain the knowledge and you just know how to flow in things that are messed up or things that need filling. You just automatically know what to do. While if it's a job for someone, them now get anxious because they're not thinking ahead, as in, hey, if something happen, how do I fill in this or what do I do? So
it also
difference.
helps to have a really good talent. I'll give you that. Some shows will have one, and a talent, I guess, for someone that's unsure what I mean, is like a host. So if you have a really good host,
Right.
it helps you because they're also quick thinkers. Um, so they'll know, okay, Sam, I saw this today, I can talk about it. So they'll help you along the way as well, which kind of takes some of the burden off you. So while you're there trying to fix this really hell of a mess that's happening, they're helping you as well. So that kind of helps a lot of the time. And yes, recorded shows, oh God, I love those. I I am for them. But being a producer or being in production, because I guess I'm a little bit too humble, but I don't really refer to myself as a producer per se.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just say I'm in radio production and I leave it there. I really apologize about all the road
Now, Miss, give
noise.
yourself your title, Miss. You're a producer.
Go again.
I said, give yourself your title, Miss. You're a
All
producer.
right, well, thank you. But it's not something, but I'll say, what being a part of production has really taught me to how to handle my life. So you learn this level of organization, and you learn time management, and you also learn to respect people's time. And you also learn something
Mm-hmm.
called following up. So a lot of the time, what reaches people is you'll lock in, meaning you'll book a client or a guest, you'll book them, but you don't follow up with them. So they forget too. It's your job to check
Mm,
in. So you give yourself a time frame, whether you're gonna check in, you're gonna book them. I always tell people try to book your guests, 2 weeks in advance. If it's something that you can really plan that far ahead, try to book them 2 weeks in advance.
right.
Take in consideration that they have something that they're doing as well. And then you follow up with them
Right.
1 week after, and then you try to do 2 days and then the morning off. It sounds like a lot, but it saves your production. It's a horrible thing,
Yeah.
but people forget. So that's
Yeah. People forget. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I mean, some persons will say it's a lot because 2 weeks when you book them, then a week after, then 2 days after, they're like, "Come on, people, you need to remember." But as you say, we need to take it from the production side to say, "Listen, yes, you might remember, but there are people who forget, so we're therefore going to continue to remind you because if them flop out, it affects our show."
and then ask
So
yourself, who
you have to
needs
do it
this?
for
Do they need
yourself.
it or do you need it? Whose show is it?
Mighty God. On that note, on that note, we are gonna go to a break. And we're gonna come right back after this.
Okay.
Shopping Assistance Jamaica takes the stress away from finding those items you can't locate or purchasing items online or locally. From searching to purchasing to delivery, Shopping Assistance makes it very easy. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or email us at shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at The Shopping Assistants, on Instagram at The Shopping Assistants JA, and on Twitter at Shopping Assist 5.
Welcome back to the Unfiltered by Jade. We're speaking with Andrica. She is the producer. She is the all-rounded person. She's a go-to with everything. She is what it is that you're looking for. She just left us off on a note, and I want her to repeat that note so that people can hear it because it's so important when it is that you don't. No, no, it's true. Because sometimes, I just say, people are saying, no, I book it. They're supposed to remember. I book this person for this show. They're supposed to remember or whatever. But can you just kind of repeat to the public what you just said before I went on the break?
Who needs the interview? So that's the most important thing. Yes, you book somebody, but who needs the interview? You or them? Whose show is it? So it really is, in the grand scheme of things, your loss. And production is what I call unforgiving. You can do a great production on Wednesday, and the world will praise you. But if you do a poor production on Thursday, Wednesday's slate is wiped. Nobody remembers about that good production on
Mm.
Wednesday. Maybe a few loyal ones. Let me not be horrible. You might have a few loyal ones that will say, yeah, man, that show is always nice. It's just a mix up. But the real person, think about someone
Mm.
tuning in for the first time to your show. And the first time they tune in is when that mistake happens. Or when,
Them no one listen again.
exactly. And I always tell persons, because I do train some young producers as well, and I always say to them, approach your show like every single time you speak, someone is tuning in for the first time.
Ah, I like
Yes.
that.
Every
I
time
like that. I do like
you speak, someone is tuning in for the first time. So when you approach it that way, you'll have a greater hindsight into where you're going. And one more thing
that.
too, there are
Okay.
other mistakes that will happen outside of guests. I know that we've been on this point for a little bit, but it's important to know that sometimes you'll have technical difficulties. Sometimes you'll have blackouts.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a country where many things happen a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
times. But when it is that it's a clear mistake like that, it's okay to apologize or ask your talent or your host to apologize on your, sorry about that. We ran into some technical difficulties, but we're back on. Some people make jokes about it as well. I've been in spaces where people will say, "Why the universe a fight with today?" But them can't stop the show. But what that does, it brings your audience back to you, so you bridge that gap immediately, as opposed to you just
Right.
coming back in and pretending like it never happened. And the persons listening are like, "But it don't just go blank for 30 minutes. Nobody not gonna address that." Kind of vibe.
Nobody, you're right. Nobody's gonna say anything to us.
Right.
Right, 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 right.
It's very,
Yeah.
very important
Oh,
to do that.
well, people need to be taking notes while you're talking because you're giving out a lot of gems while you speak. The next question is: do you believe that producers get enough credits for the work that is
Look how
produced?
mega lose more. No, look. Oh, look. But I'm just being malicious. Actually, it depends. It depends on the production. So generally speaking, a lot of people might say no. I personally can't exactly complain, because all my shows and all my talents always give me credit. They're always very
Yep.
grateful. They're always very kind to me. And I have to be, once it's in that production space and I do something, I can always say that I've reaped the benefits of my job. And I would be really,
Nice.
really ungrateful if I said otherwise. Um, but I
Mm.
have seen instances though. I have witnessed instances where awesome talents will take credit for producers' work. And also, well, I think maybe what you meant is if maybe to the public, and that's because a lot of the time the public doesn't know the producer.
And that's what
Yes,
I'm saying.
when
Right.
the public listens to a show, they only really know who they're listening to. However, they may not
Right.
know the producer's name, and they may not stick around to even hear when
Mm.
the greetings are being given out or the thank yous are being said, which all shows usually do that. But it's really a public thing. I think it's generally speaking, we always give the face of anything the credit as people, just generally, and not so much the work. We don't really focus on the work that's put into
People that do
anything.
work behind it.
Like,
Right.
I think it's a
Right.
problem we have as human beings. We don't really focus on the work that people put into anything. So even when the host will go around and say, thank you, Andrica, you did a great job, that go over half of them head. All they really heard was the
Yeah.
show.
You know that. Actually, that's how I know your name because of I was listening to one of your programs that you did, and I heard them say, "Oh, whatever," and they call your name. So I already was familiar with the name before I was familiar with your face.
Wow, you just gave me the chills.
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest
Yeah.
with you. I've been blessed in that space, because I've been in the supermarket, random spaces, and my name will somehow be said, or I will say something, and people recognize my voice or they recognize my name.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at first it
Yeah.
was a little, I don't know if you can imagine that feeling when somebody randomly say you're Andrica from Nationwide, and you're kind of there like, yes. It's a little, one time I made a joke with
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
time I made a joke with my friends, and I have to start walk with bodyguard now because I'm famous. But um, the truth is, I've been really blessed in that regard. That the people that I assist in producing, they really do give me credit for that, and it has brought a lot of other work to me
Yeah.
because once I say my name, especially if I jump on a phone call nowadays and I'm trying to get something done, once I say, "Hey, my name is Andrica Rig, I'm calling from Nationwide, trust me," they'll be like, "Oh, is you?" And
Yeah.
things always work in my favor, thankfully.
Yes. So it's a pro. It's a pro to this
It is.
producing. Listen, don't jump ahead of me because that's part of my question again. But before we go there, do producers get rest?
What you
Shallow.
call rest? What you call rest?
Rest. Do you get rest? Do you not produce in your mind while you're sleeping? Do you get time off? Do you get rest?
Politically, I am allowed to take rest. Yeah, the people that get time forgot what I sleep. But the truth is, and I'm not gonna lie, there's sometimes when your production is under control and you're able to take a breather. But for a lot of it, if you have something major that you're planning and you're trying to make sure it goes good, you don't always get to rest like other persons. And especially for someone like me, I produce three radio shows and a podcast. So I'm always producing, literally. I'm always producing. And what that does is, as soon as I get out of one, I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing for this one? So time management comes in. But in regards to rest, boy, I'm gonna say sometimes I really don't get to, but it's really dependent on your production. So it depends on the kind of production you have. If you have a light show, so your show is mainly music or your show is mainly, just going with the flow, you might have that leverage a little bit more as opposed to someone that has a scripted show or a show that requires a lot of features or a show that requires a lot of interviews. Right. Because when you're doing interviews, you have to do research for your little guests. You have to make sure so you have the questions pertaining to them. And one common mistake I saw a young producer make, and I want to say this for anyone that's listening: do not do generic questions. Generic questions don't work. It might work for you once or twice, but eventually it's gonna fall through the cracks because not everybody is the same. So take for example, you today, Jade. Let's say you had generic questions, but what if I was a cooking producer? Your production would have almost, because you're kind of like, things kind of different now. The questions have to be different. So it's important for you to learn your guests.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's important. I'm not quite sure why or how you would have producers not knowing who they're producing, or not producing, but who they're going to be interviewing. I'm not quite sure how, because as you spoke about for the Unfiltered, everybody that I am doing an interview with, I know something about. So if I don't know, I have what I try to do is I have conversations with them to know a little bit about them, because the truth is sometimes if you even look upon the person or do something, sometimes that situation may have changed a long time ago. So it's important for you sometimes to kind of have conversations with the person who you are interviewing, or know them a little bit before. But for generic questions, I don't necessarily like generic questions to ask people, because I somehow find them a little bit boring and vague. I like to get up into people's business that may ask you to resign and say, I cannot give a direct answer because you give a political answer. But
and it's funny because I understand where you're coming from, but that's because you two would have been observant and you would have learned that skill. A lot of people haven't learned that skill yet. So they'll do generic things like, tell me about yourself, where you're from, how was your childhood, what do you do now, how is that experience, what are you going to do in the future, and that's it, And if you really are honest with yourself, if you listen to a lot of interviews, that's what it's about. Like, it's the same thing over and over and over again. So I like to tell people all the time, make sure you learn your guests. Ask them for a bio if they're not somebody, because some guests are a little bit more private. They don't want to talk to you on the phone. They rather that you go through their management. Ask for a bio on them, an updated bio, or as updated as you can get it. And then you also ask their management team, is there anything new happening with them? So for example, let's say you were interviewing an artist, Jade. It would have been like irresponsible to not know that they just released an album, and you don't ask them about that.
Right.
So it's just a good tip to have as well. But hey, let me not jump ahead of your questions anymore. It's the producer in me, I'm sorry.
What are your pros and your cons? You already started giving me some pros. What, continue with the pros and the cons as being a producer?
So I mean, one interesting pro is it helps you to keep up with the news and current affairs. It's almost like you have to do it, so you always know what's happening around you. You get to network, and networking is important to success. So you might be a producer that's looking to do something in your life. You might come in contact with people that can assist you along that journey. It grows all your skills. You learn to speak better. Sorry, you learn to think better. What are we going to speak better and then mix up a word? What? But yeah, you learn to speak better, think faster. So you learn some skills that you may have been taught in primary school, but they got a little rusty. You kind of get back in the groove of those things. And then oh well, there's a lot of them. And then it also makes for a good resume. I'm not gonna lie to you, because if you're a producer, usually is someone that has to do so many things that if it is that they decide to move on to something else, people oftentimes will look on their resumes with a nice, this is an interesting person. The cons though is that well, they're all pretty much around how demanding the space and the job can be. So you asked one of them earlier that you may not always get rest. You may not always get personal time, which means that if you're someone building a family, sometimes you might have to sacrifice a little time here and there. So if you have a 12-hour production, it means that you might not get home until the babies are sleeping, kind of vibe. Or if it is, and then production doesn't really always respect weekends. So you can't say, well, work is from Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday is mine. Because if something pops up that you have to do on the weekend, well, you just have to do it. The same thing for holidays. So a lot of the cons is based around the demanding, the how demanding the space is, and just how much time is sometimes required. And then also, there's a lot of pressure put on you as a producer. Because if you don't get it right, then the show goes south. So that pressure, if you're not a strong person, strong-minded, strong-footed, you might shake a little bit. I'll let you in on a little secret. Sorry, in my first year of producing, I cried a lot. I cried a lot because I have a vision for myself and how great I want to be. So I'll tell people ask me, what's my goal? I want to be remembered for being a great person. I want every person that comes in contact with me to be impacted positively. So I take that on with my professional life as well. So whatever I put my hand to, it must be done well, to the best of my ability, all of that stuff. But you will make mistakes no matter how good you are. Things will happen. If I'm doing a rush production, or the show wasn't coming together at first, and then I only have 1 hour to put the script together, I might miss a word, I might mix up the dates. Something can go wrong that can make your production. One simple mistake can blow up your whole production. And I used to take that on. And I used to be like, I'm failing at everything. Like I really used to say that to myself. I'm failing at this. I'm not doing a good job. And it really used to affect me in such a negative way, because I'm like, why can't I get it right? So I felt like that was a big part of my journey. It wasn't always roses and glamour. There was a good part when I didn't believe in my skills as a producer. So yeah, there's a lot of things that come with the job. I tell you, a whole lot.
That's yeah. Well, you're talking a while ago, and I'm saying, boy, it's mentally draining. Sometimes I can imagine how mentally draining it can be sometimes. And the mere fact that you take it on to your personal life now, and you start saying, boy, you're failing at things, and I mean, people don't get to see that. People just get to see a good show. And if it doesn't go well, them cause, wow, what kind of cool show? And if it goes well, oh my God, it's a good show, but they don't see the kind of effort that it's put in to make a show a good show. It's so important, you guys. You're so important. You guys are superheroes of the radio, basically.
I like that concept. Thank you.
You guys put in the work. Yeah, basically, come save all the way. The last question is floating ideas. How do you deal with that? You were talking about that earlier. If you're on a date and you get an idea,
okay, so floating ideas. So like I said, it happens all the time. It's okay. You can be in a shower and get an idea. I'll get an idea and I have to stop. I get my phone and put it in my notepad. One of the things that being so busy and doing so many shows does is sometimes your memory it can prove to be a little challenging because you're trying to remember everything. You're producing so many things, you're doing so many things, you can't always remember. So it's important to write stuff down. So every time I get an idea, the first thing I do is write it down. So yeah, I'll be on a date and I see something that I don't know, maybe a drink is being made and something comes to my mind. I remember one time a friend of mine was sick and she was talking about all of these bushes, and I got the idea to do a show on bushes.
Right.
And just brilliant of bush. Yeah. And you'll be so surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
that show can flesh out, because what you now do is do some research on bushes that grow, or grass, if you want to call it, but bush, literal grass, plants that grow from the earth, and what they can do for your body. That's a show. That's a whole show.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, it's almost like the show that I did it in, it's almost like I needed more time. So stuff like that can pop up all the time. Similarly to like I told you about the young man that I saw that wipes windshields for a living and all of that. That's a show. But when you see that and you're in the traffic, the best thing to do is write it down. And then because you can also bounce ideas. So you can get an idea you're not so sure about. You can bounce it off other people. You can do a little mini thing in a little circle. You say, if you heard a show about this, would you listen? Are you interested? Kind of vibe. But it can come to you at the I don't know, the most odd moment. You can be cooking and you think of something, and it doesn't have to be something related to cooking, but when you're cooking, your brain is a little bit more stimulated. Something can pop in your head, you just write it down, and anything can be a topic, anything at all. It's just for you to find the right
as long as
it's just for you to find
right.
In production we call it fleshing it out. So it's just for you, or fluffing it out. I'm sure you know where fluffing it out came from, but it's just for you to break it apart and look at it from different perspectives, and not the same perspective that everybody's always looking at it from. Right. So yeah, that's always a good. And I love floating ideas sometimes, because you wouldn't think about it. Just like if you're overthinking, it's not gonna come to you. You can't really force your brain to think, if you get what I mean. So you just have to move with the wave of the universe, essentially. The universe gives you things. And if you're a producer, it gives you ideas. If you're an artist, it gives you songs. Whatever your craft is, it gives you.
Missy.
We are missing me now, both.
But I was gonna tell you, say the universe not giving an idea. God gives me
God
ideas.
made the universe.
But
so by extension, it is God.
That is why there are two different. God made the universe, so the universe can give you the ideas. So must God give you the ideas?
God, by extension, the universe. Yes.
I get your point, though. I get your point. Sometimes it's when I sleep, I know I figure out the idea, and I'm like, wait, let me get up and write this down. Yeah, these things. Yeah, it comes. I think at a point I was, cleaning, and I said, let me interview Andrica about producing.
Oh wow!
Just cleaning, and I start writing. What am I gonna ask her? Right. So I mean, it just comes, and I think I'm like this because I used to do it for radio also. So I always have floating ideas, and I've always had a notebook to write down ideas in. So it's a good thing that you brought in that point also, because I mean that's how you get ideas. That's how ideas come to person. So, is there any little gem that you want to sprinkle and leave to the people then before we end the show, man? If you had told me
that you was gonna ask that question, I would have saved all of the other ones that I said earlier and just say them now. So no, I don't have no more. I'm joking, but it's just I tell people this all the time. Don't overthink it, right? I feel like when we enter something new, we overthink it. Or even if you're in it for a while and you feel like you're kind of not so good at it, don't overthink the process. Just set your goals,
Right.
Plan in advance for your shows. So, for example, shows for October, it would be good if you started planning from August. So you plan 2 months in advance.
Okay. You know, put a pin on that. Put a pin on that. I had mentioned that to someone the other day, and they were like, "No, but if you have a show for October and start planning it from October, it's kind of gonna get stale." And I was like, "It's not gonna get stale because it's
Yeah,
not gonna come up
how would
until
it get
October."
stale if you're just
You
putting
know,
your ideas together?
because they were saying, the idea is right, and they were saying because other things may come up, but I was like, but you have to plan ahead. I mean, I guess it's different people because sometimes you plan the shows like
Mm-hmm.
the day before. And it works differently for everyone because, as I said earlier, some people have anxiety problem like myself. So I have to always record and plan like a
Right.
month in advance
And
before. I don't, right. So, I mean, I
it
guess it
doesn't
works for
really matter
everybody.
either. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
like the point though.
I was gonna say it doesn't
No,
really
go
matter
ahead.
either if things pop up, because things popping up can also work into whatever you're planning, and you'll be surprised to know that okay, maybe you had planned something, but it's not time sensitive, and you can push it forward too. So a lot of the times I think we're
Mm,
closed-minded. So maybe the person that's responding to you, they don't like change. People don't like change. They don't like feeling like they're doing too much. We don't like doing a lot of work. That can happen. But you'll find that it makes for an easy process if you do
okay.
it 2 months in advance. Because even if it
Mhm.
is that you have to put something in its slot, that show is already still planned. So you'll have it. You'll have it to bounce back on at some point. So it's not like when you plan a
Right,
show, it disappears when something else pops up. It's there. And I mean, I understand if
right,
you had booked a guest,
right.
a guest, then you have to kind of, but you call them, you explain, you know, asking you kindly. I really do apologize about the
Right,
short notice. I'm asking you kindly if we can probably push it to next week. And and you be professional about it. But planning ahead helps you a lot,
right.
because what that does for you is that 2 days before your show, you're not sitting on the ground stressing out about what you're going to be talking about because you don't have any clue. That's what it does for you.
Right.
So it's important to plan ahead, and it's
Yeah.
important, as I said, to always remind your guests of the show. It's also important to do checks. So never be too sure. It can be something as simple as check to make sure, say, your clock is on time. You don't want to start your show thinking it's 4 o'clock when it's really 3:30. So it's
Okay,
focusing on
okay,
the
okay.
small
Right.
things. Make sure that the pen is actually writing when you put in front of your
Um,
host. Make sure that the laptop or the tablet is charged.
true.
There are simple little things that we don't really pick up on immediately, that over a period of time you catch on to. And those are the things that can really throw you for a loop. More than even the big things. Yep. I remember
Mm,
how I learned.
those, yeah, those are good things to actually think about. I mean, nobody sits down and
No.
really think about the small things. When I talk about production, really think about the big things and how you produce it and what they're going to talk about and the topics. Nobody thinking about ensuring that the pens are working. They have a little
Yes.
water to drink in case them throat get dry. They have the small things. Nobody really thinking about those, but those are
Yes.
good. And the time. Nobody's really saying, oh, we have to ensure that the time is correct because we don't want to have a show that's supposed to start at 4 o'clock and we're starting it at three
It throws
fifteen
off
instead.
everything.
It throws off everything.
Which goes back
So
to, sorry,
yeah, those
one of
are
the
some.
last things is you have to be there before your host. Be there before everybody. If your production starts at 10, be there hour and a half early. Get there hour and a half early.
Mm,
Make sure everything is
to make
going
sure
good.
everything
If
is
you have
going
a
smoothly.
script to print, make sure that you print your script. If it's a digital script, because we're going paperless, saving the trees, make sure, like I said, that the devices are charged. If you get to your
Mm,
location at 10:55 for your 11 o'clock production and your laptop is dead, how that work? But
right,
it's
right. Oh
things
Lord.
like that happens, and people are
Hey.
shuffling now
Oh
to
Lord.
find a plug-in to make sure that the laptop is charged. We're hoping to God that the laptop will stay on. All of these things now that could have been avoided if you had just show up on time. Yeah, man. And
Mhm.
it's the same thing for even the clock. I remember I learned that clock rule from a mistake. Not really a mistake, but an oversight on my part. So because I've gotten so used to the clock always being on time, the clock always being on time, we ended up ending the show late because the clock was 5 minutes slow. And that's the clock that everybody looks up
Mm.
on to make sure say it is we're on time.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
All right.
man. So you learn. You learn. You learn.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. That's. I mean, I'm even learning from it. It's a lot. I'm even learning from it. So I'm hoping that other persons are taking note. Those persons who are doing, whether it is radio as Andrica, whether they're doing their podcast, whatever, because we have producers that do many things, music, all sorts of stuff. Ensure that you follow these rules, and these protocols to ensure that you have a great show. You actually have a good show. Yes, I want to thank you so much, Andrica, for being on this show. You gave a lot of insight, and I want to tell you to just continue being the
Oh,
best producer
thank you,
that you
Jade.
are. I'm gonna give a little award, for
Thank
producer.
you, Jade. You're the
Yes, ma'am.
sweetest. I really do appreciate the opportunity. I'll say this for your wonderful listeners. I really don't do interviews.
Mhm.
I write interviews for people to be interviewed.
Yeah.
So I really don't do this. But I decided to turn a new leaf, try something new.
No, no, I know you don't do it.
Because a lot
No.
of the times you'll realize
Thank you
that
for
what you
trying
say,
something.
you can't really take it back. So you have to be a little bit more mindful when doing interviews. But I trust this space and I trust you as a host and a producer
Um,
yourself. And I'm really proud of the work that you've been doing with your podcast and how you step out. I know you
oh,
personally and just seeing your growth. I am really, really proud.
shut up, about
I am really,
professional.
really
You
proud of
cannot
you.
be
And
so.
I'm in awe. My heart is full. I'm really happy. Your questions are great, and you're doing great, and you're a good producer yourself. And I hope that you're giving yourself enough credit for that. And just, I heard you say protocol, so I just want to say real quick in this COVID-19 time, guys, make sure you're sanitizing everything that you give into your host, and make sure that you too are sanitizing everything that you use, every pen, every microphone, every desk, everything, every chair. Just make sure that you guys are staying safe and staying COVID-19 free.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. That was good words of encouragement.
So that was Andrica Rigg, who is a 24-year-old producer at Nationwide 90 FM. I really hope you got as much gems and insights as I did. It was a good show. If you want to connect with her, you can on Instagram at drica.r. It's at DRIICA.r. So we'll be here next week again for you on the Unfiltered by Jade. Thank you.